a dream or scream a scream when it comes to Les Misérables, as Tom Hooper's new film divides audiences. In today's show, we're going to talk about one of France's most famous stories. Giddy up, Philippe!
It's a struggle, it's a war, and there's nothing that anyone's giving. What are they standing about? What is it for?
The power of a glance has been so much abused in love stories that it has come to be disbelieved in. Few people dare now to say that two beings have fallen in love because they have looked at each other. Yet it is in this way that love begins, and in this way only. Victor Hugo's 1862 book is considered one of the greatest novels of the 19th century. It tells the enthralling story of unrequited love, broken dreams, sacrifice and redemption. He wrote it in an apartment overlooking this square. Let's take a tour now of the novel's key sites here in Paris.
Victor Hugo's Les Misérables takes its reader back to 19th century Paris. It's in a garden near the Champs-Élysées that one of his characters' descent into misery begins. Pregnant and abandoned by her lover, Fantine gives her daughter to the malevolent Thénardiers to look after. Cosette finally escapes thanks to ex-convict Jean Valjean. They end up hiding out at this cottage in Paris's 13th district. Jean-Marc Auvasse has truly taken Paris's winding streets and Victor Hugo to heart. He introduces us to another character, Gavroche.
He lives in a huge elephant on the Place de la Bastille. The elephant was originally Napoleon I's idea to decorate the square. It was later replaced by this column here. The
Paris in Victor Hugo's Les Misérables is also the Paris of barricades and failed revolts, like the Republican uprising of June 5th, 1832.
We're here at one of the novel's most important points. This is where the Corinth Cabaret was, where all those people died on the barricades, one of which cut off Rue Rambuteau and one which cut Rue Mondétour here.
Not far from there, Jean Valjean runs into Inspector Javert. He's unable to arrest the former convict who saved his life as the insurrectionists were about to shoot him. The lawman, torn between his duty and his conscience, finally kills himself.
Here we're on the corner of the Notre Dame Bridge, where Javert, at the end of Les Misérables, after thinking deeply for a whole night, after a storm in his head, jumps into the Seine River.
For happier moments, Victor Hugo often chose churches. There's Saint-Sulpice, where Valjean and Cosette attended Mass, and where Victor Hugo married his wife Adèle in 1822. There's also Saint-Paul in Paris's 4th district.
The altar here in this church is where Marius married Cosette. It's not an episode told in Les Misérables, it's just mentioned. There's no talk of happiness or even the marriage itself.
More than the churches of Paris, Victor Hugo was about the redemption of its people. He even said it himself. Breathe Paris in. It preserves the soul.
I dreamed a dream in time gone by, and hope was high and life worth living.
Featuring songs like I Dreamed a Dream and On My Own, Tom Hooper's film is loved by some, while others find it every bit as long and arduous as the French Revolution itself. It stars Anne Hathaway and Hugh Jackman, and has even got Russell Crowe singing. Decided to adapt one of France's most iconic stories, and not only that, you got people to sing live. Why did you choose such a difficult thing to do?
I think after the success I was fortunate enough to have on the King's Speech, I didn't want to be conservative. I wanted to use the chance of that acknowledgement I'd had from the industry to really push myself or to try something very new, and what could be more new or more difficult than the movie musical. I mean, and why is it difficult? It's because you're creating an alternate universe where people communicate through song, and you have to make it convincing. If you don't make it convincing, all is lost. And so everything we did was to try to seduce people into this world so that this world would become completely real for them, and that's why we did live singing, that's why we did the musical sung through.
And her father abandoned us, leaving us flat. Now she lives with an innkeeper man and his wife, and I pay for the child. What's the matter with that?
At the end of the day, she'll be nothing but trouble. And there's trouble for all, and there's trouble for one. While we're earning our daily bread, she's the woman that ran to the border. You must send the swords away, or we're all going to end in the gutter.
We all knew that there was a very thin line between you know, bravery and foolishness, and that it was and we had to walk it very carefully every day. But it was exhilarating to be entrusted with something for the first time, a new way of telling a story. That was very, very exciting. So it was scary, but I tried not to focus on that. I tried to focus on the potential positives. And it felt so cool to tell a story in that way with all of yourself, and not just your speaking voice, but all of you. That was wonderful.
It was terrifying, but it was wonderful. The problem if you don't sing live is that you spend a good 70% of your brain power trying to move your mouth at the same time to playback that you've recorded months before. The wonderful thing about singing live is you don't have to stick to any rules or rigours.
I had a dream my life would be.
And I'm not a coal miner, you know, like there's really serious difficult jobs out there. I don't have one of them. Whatever I do, I'm uncomfortable for a few weeks, a few months at a time, maybe a half a year at most, but it's never that bad.
And you're a glamorous, beautiful Hollywood star, but in the film, a little bit less so. What was that like for you?
It felt more normal than the glamorous Hollywood stuff, to be honest.
On the scale of the difficult films that you've done, where is this one?
The most difficult I've done, without a doubt.
Why do you think this story has lasted for so long and become so iconic?
I think it's because it's about these eternal, universal themes of forgiveness and love and revolution, and you know, it's about the sacrifices we make for love. I think that's what connects with people.
Stole a loaf of bread. My sister's child was close to death. We were starving.
You'll starve again unless you learn the meaning of the law.
How did you feel about the fact that you've spent 2 years making a film that basically makes people cry?
It's very it's strange because I mean, most jobs, if you said you'd spent the last 2 years and all you did was make people cry, that'd be a bad thing. But I think in this case it's okay.
And what's it like presenting this in France, of all places?
It's very moving because Paris, well, you know, we're here in Paris, which is the spiritual home of the novel. It's also the city that Victor Hugo adored and was so obsessed by, and the novel in some ways is a love poem to Paris, and so to be here is kind of feels like it's bringing it home.
In the darkness, the trees are full of starlight, and all I see is him and me forever and
I used to try and imagine what it would be like for foreigners to do a version of a Charles Dickens novel. You know, it's a very odd thing, but I think that the music is universal, and it's such a beautiful score, and But it was amazing driving through Paris today, feeling the actual sense of the history here and what that revolution or the revolt was. So amazing.
You read the book?
Yes, I have. Yeah, he was quite. That was definitely day one of rehearsal.
I do not even know your name, dear mademoiselle.
Do you find yourself singing a lot in real life now?
I always did that. If anything, I took a break after the film. It was too psychologically complex. I don't even know to go there. I was so used to listening to myself and modulating and self-correcting, and I had to. Took a few months before I could sing for pleasure again.
Tom Hooper isn't the only one to be inspired by Victor Hugo's masterpiece. The stage version of Les Misérables has been seen by more than 60 million people around the world. And the pain, misery and suffering continues to inspire.
Touche pas.
Jean Gabin plays Jean Valjean in the 1958 version of the Victor Hugo classic. It is one of many silver screen versions. Robert Hossein directed one in 1982, a couple of years after Les Misérables, the musical, scored a huge success in Paris. The story has lasting appeal.
I feel his arms around.
The film version of the musical resists Hollywood treatment.
Was high, life worth living.
The fact it's a big-budget film with a large cast doesn't mean it's Hollywood style. Many European films have been made with big casts. French ones too. It's not a Hollywood movie, it's a timeless epic on a scale of Ben-Hur decades ago, like the great classics of cinema.
The two French composers tied up with the British theatre producer Cameron Mackintosh in 1985. Les Misérables crossed the Channel, starting out at London's Barricades Theatre. Its popularity grew and grew, becoming a massive hit worldwide. Mackintosh recalls the year it all began.
It's actually 30 years ago this week that I met Alain and Claude Michel in Paris for the first time, and we started talking about trying to remake it as a stage musical in London.
I dreamed a dream.
The global Les Mis phenomenon didn't need a boost, but it got one with Britain's Got Talent TV show. Scotland's Susan Boyle sang I Dreamed a Dream.
Did you? No.
In 2010, the musical returned to Paris to the Châtelet Theatre in its English-language version. It has been staged in more than 40 countries. Here, actors from the 20e Theatre in Paris are rehearsing scenes from Victor Hugo's novel for a stage version, this time in French.
Je m'appelle Madame Thénardier. Je tiens à cette auberge avec mon mari.
That's the end of our show about Les Misérables. The old stories are still the best, so don't be put off by the 1,500 pages. If you haven't already, give Victor Hugo's masterpiece a try. Thanks for joining us. See ya.
Who was that girl?
Cosette.
And yet with you my world has started.
But he never saw me there.